Ready or not, 2025 is here. And the question is, what sort of year are we in for? And honestly, I don't have a clue. I mean, I'd love to be able to tell you I did. All I can tell you is I've been really worried about the state of the economy for a long time now. And this goes back to 2008, 2009. Before then, I always had a really good sense of what direction things were going in. I mean, for me, it's just very clear, it's very obvious, just based on the numbers coming out about the economy, based on employment and how people were doing financially in my community. All right, ever since 2008, the rules were broken then. Prior to that, okay, we had economic principles and rules that just kind of governed everything. Supply and demand, stuff like that. All right, those rules were broken in 2008. And a lot of things have been hidden since then. Inflation. How many of you believe the inflation numbers put out by the government? I certainly don't. The actual inflation was way worse, and what they did is they changed how they were calculating inflation from how they calculated it in the past. Say in 1980, they used a different formula. Okay, they're hiding what inflation really is. And since 2008, okay, with the quantitative easing and all of that stuff, the government stepping in and saving the banks because the banks were too big to fail. Okay, nobody at that time could have ever predicted the government was going to throw $30 trillion at the economy. I mean, that's just absolutely unimaginable. But it has. And right now we're way past, we're $35 trillion in debt. Okay, that's not good. All right, so we've got that. We've got Trump coming into the White House. I'm not going to believe he's going to be president until he's sworn in. There's a lot that could happen between now and then. Okay, assuming he becomes president, there's absolutely no telling what effect that's going to have on the economy. Right now, the government's been keeping everything going. It shouldn't be that way, but they have. So what happens when Trump starts really cutting down on the size of government? There's going to be a lot of employed people. Okay, short term, that's going to be a lot less money in the economy. A lot of people looking for jobs, government workers, all of that stuff. A lot of suppliers working for the government and incomes from that and so on. Long term, it'd be great for the economy, okay, because the government is just sucking the life out of this country with its spending. Okay, it's going to be tough getting there. All right, and then we get into valuations. Okay, the stock market. Right now, companies, their stocks are worth more, way too much compared to what the company itself generates in income. Valuations. And this is something Dave Collum has talked about a lot. I encourage you to do a search on Dave Collum. He's got some really good stuff. Really good insights. Not fear-mongering, just basic reality. Okay, he's predicting 40 years of bad stagnation. There'll be some ups and downs, but overall the market not moving for 40 years, maybe 35. That's just how bad the situation is right now. Okay, and that's if it's slow and painful. Now, if it's quick, then the bottom just falls out, then we're in Great Depression territory for at least a decade. And I don't see the government letting that happen, but I don't know that the government's going to be able to prevent that either. There's just so much uncertainty on everything. I just know what has happened since 2008 has not been good. Okay, we've just been putting our nation, further and further in debt. We've been propping up the big companies, throwing way too much money at them. We've got too much corruption. With too much money laundering going on in the government. I'm going to give this country $20 billion, and then they're going to make sure a couple million make it back to me and my buddies. And anyway. Okay, so with So much uncertainty, and again, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not saying this year's going to be bad. It's looking like it's going to be good in some places and bad in others, just depending on where you live. Okay, certain areas the economy is booming, and a lot of other areas it's tanking. Okay, so maybe this is going to be very regional. All right. The only thing I know to do is just prepare. Prepare for whatever's coming, because something's coming. Okay, and what does preparing for just complete unknown look like? For me, I'm preparing for the Great Depression 2.0, and I've talked about this before. And again, I'm not saying it's coming. I don't know that. I don't know what's coming. I just know things are broken. Okay, so that's my answer. I've said this before. My answer to everything is plant a garden. Okay, and this is my basic reasoning for everything here. If my house is paid for, I don't have any debt, I can grow a garden. I do hunting and fishing. When I say hunting and fishing, I mean I'm doing it as a way to be productive, to put meat in the freezer. I'm not spending thousands upon thousands of dollars and it being entertainment. All right, so if I can provide some of my own meat, provide a lot of my own food, not all of it, I'm not trying to be completely self-sufficient, but all of that really takes off the pressure when it comes to going to the grocery store. Okay, so if I can reduce my expenses grocery-wise, if I can reduce my energy expenses, energy is going to be pretty volatile. It doesn't matter what the price of energy is so much as how much money do we have. Okay, the price of energy could go up, and for those of us not on a fixed income, for those that are on a fixed income, then you really need to guard against inflation, because inflation has gone up a lot quicker than your fixed income. And that's part of why the government's been lying about inflation numbers, because Social Security is tied to inflation, and they are required to raise the benefit payments of Social Security if inflation, to keep up with inflation. Okay, well, if they lie about the numbers, and then they say, okay, if inflation is 3% when it's really 9%, then they don't have to pay out all of that extra money in benefits. All of that extra money that they don't have, or that they're spending on themselves and their friends. And certainly isn't going to FEMA, is it? Okay, so if I can keep my energy use down, all right, if energy goes up, but how much money I'm earning goes up even more, then energy prices aren't an issue. Or if energy prices go down and it's really cheap, but I have no money. Okay, so this is inflation or deflation. Either way, what either of them amount to is we can't afford stuff. Okay, so if my energy requirements are less, and again, I can provide a lot of my own food, not all of it. I don't have debt. I'm in a very good position for whatever's coming. Okay, and if life's great, then hey, great. If I've really reduced my operating costs for me as a human to live in my family, then that's just money I can save over that period. Okay, during this time of uncertainty. And I guess that's my only recommendation right there. Save absolutely everything you can during this time. If things turn out great, hey, you've got some money, and when things are going great, there's opportunities everywhere. All right, well, when there's opportunities, if you have cash on hand and you're able to take advantage of those opportunities, then that's how we get ahead. When things aren't going great, there's still opportunities everywhere. And if we have cash on hand, we can take advantage of those opportunities. So that's what I'm trying to do. And unfortunately, with the house project, and everybody that follows the channels seen the extensive remodel and build I've got going on there, that's sucking up all of my cash and time and everything else. All right, but my plan is to get that done, and then I'm in a really good place for it. The foreseeable future as far as low operating expenses, low living expenses. Okay, and then I just want to save money. I want to do the things I enjoy. I want to do my hunting and my fishing and my gardening and woodworking and all of that fun stuff. But that stuff doesn't cost money, or it doesn't have to. No, we can spend as much as we want. We can spend $100,000 like that on fishing. Or we can buy a little small John boat for $1,000 and a little tackle and some fishing poles, and then fishing doesn't really cost us anything from then on. Unless we decide to buy that $100,000 boat, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with getting a $100,000 boat. If you've got $100,000 you can spend to go get the boat. Now, if you've got to go borrow a lot of money, and okay, I kid you not, I heard that they were spreading boat payments over 30 years now. Or in the past, that was just because boats depreciate, or they did depreciate so quickly. In the past, a loan for a brand new boat was probably going to be 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 for top of the line. Banks just weren't going to lend money over such a long period on something that's just going to depreciate and end up not being worth hardly anything. Okay, well, this gets back to things are broken, the rules don't apply anymore, money being so artificially cheap because of the Federal Reserve. Anyway, they've been financing boats for 30 years now, bass boats. All right, that's insanity. All right, and that's the type of stuff that worries me. That's the type of stuff that just can't continue. All right, sooner or later, reality's going to catch up with us. No matter how good we are about lying about things and numbers and so forth, eventually reality's going to be there. Okay, so that's my goal this year. Finish the house, and then just focus on keeping my expenses as low as absolutely possible, saving cash for whatever, and this is a part of that. I have no clue what our money's going to be worth in the future. None. Asset prices have been going up. Okay, so everybody, all of you know how expensive houses are right now. They're through the roof. Okay, well, houses aren't worth any more than they were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. Our money is worth less than it was 50 years ago. Therefore, it takes more money to buy the house. Assuming a similar size house, similar amenities and all of that now versus 50 years ago, the houses are worth the same. It's the value of the money that has changed. Okay, so I don't know that money's going to be worth anything in the future. We see how much we've lost already. There's been for over a decade now, we've got a whole generation that has no concept of saving money in a bank and making interest on it, because banks haven't paid interest to amount to anything in over a decade. All right, what happens going forward with that generation that has never had any incentive to save money in order to go get a CD from a bank or put it in a money market account or just a plain savings account? Okay, that's a generation that they have no concept of saving, and that it's not their fault. Okay, that goes back to the rules being broken back in '08, and we're not done paying for that. Okay, finishing that thought before I was interrupted by my dog going after something. Because the value of our money is steadily decreasing, assets might be a good place for us to put our money. My house that I'm remodeling, and the land with it and so forth. Okay, it's going to continue to have value regardless of what the money does. And I don't care if the house goes up in price or not. It's irrelevant. As a matter of fact, for me, it's bad if the value of the house goes up, because then property taxes go up. Then I've got to pay the government even more money to lease my land and house from them. That's what property taxes amount to. Okay, so I want the value of assets like houses low. I mean, if I sold my house and got way more for it than I paid for it, I still got to go buy another house to live in. Okay, the only people this benefits with asset prices doing what they're doing are people that own multiple homes, landlords, and right now we've got private equity firms and so forth buying up tons of real estate and houses and rental properties and so forth. And I don't see that ending well for anybody. We'll see. But okay, so rather than saving money, maybe buying a house and putting your money in it. Maybe that's a better option than saving cash that's just constantly losing value right now. And this is so tricky. Okay, if the bottom falls out, everything's going to be on sale. No asset is going to retain its value. Gold is going to go down in value. Houses are going to go down in value. Everything's going to go down in value. All right. And then at the same time, we've got so many demographic issues. With the baby boomers now having retired and quickly exiting the workplace, all right, that's going to change things because that was such a large generation population-wise, and the generation since, my generation, Generation X, and the millennials and Gen Z and so forth are smaller generations. All right, so essentially we've got population decline here in the U.S., or we would have if it wasn't for all of the illegal immigration. Okay, so demographic-wise, everything's up in the air, but that makes a huge difference if the population's declining. That really changes things also. We don't have an economic model for how to successfully deal with the declining population. And right now, the demographics worldwide are horrible. Okay, China's collapsing population-wise, Europe, just Russia, the world over. Okay, so that's another unknown. Okay, well, that's just more uncertainty, which goes back for me. I want to make sure I can keep my expenses as low as possible. Therefore, I'm prepared for whatever's coming. So I am putting my money in assets right now in my house. I'd rather invest in the house that I'm remodeling and getting it so that it is energy efficient and so forth, rather than having that cash just sitting in the bank and losing value, losing its purchasing ability. So that's what has me worried going into 2025. It's just the uncertainty, I guess. Now, what am I excited about going into 2025? Well, the biggest thing I'm excited about is seeing America realize that it's a Christian nation again, which most of us have known this all along, but corporate media, what used to be mainstream media, it's not mainstream anymore, it's corporate media. Social media has become mainstream now. Okay, corporate media and our institutions have been trying really hard for a long time, for whatever reason, to convince Americans that Christianity's in the past. We're not Christians. Okay, that's not true. The overwhelming majority of Americans identify as Christians. And so many are starting to realize, hey, that's my heritage, and I'm going to take that serious. And if we're living right with the Lord, the future is going to take care of itself. It's going to be a really good future. Okay, if we're not, then it's going to end badly. Okay, so seeing so many Americans realize we are Christians and realizing, that part of our heritage, that's probably the most important thing that the past has to offer us. Okay, and people starting to read their Bibles and learning about Christianity, becoming true Christians, practicing Christians again. Okay, that makes me feel good. That gives me hope for the future. Without that, right now with the internet, okay, what we're living in is not the information age, it's the misinformation age. Search results are becoming horrible. All right, it's difficult to find the truth on anything now. All right, tech companies, they're deciding what we can find and what we can't find in search results. Type in how to restore an old window. How many new windows pop up for sale? What does buying a new window have to do with restoring an old window? Okay, and I talked about this before. This is something I went through not that long ago. I didn't want a new window. I wanted information on restoring an old one. It's becoming difficult to find that type of information. We're not going to be able to rely on the internet. And there's just so much dishonesty and corruption out there. All right, well, those are anti-Christian values. All right, none of this works if we're all full of anti-Christian values. Okay, that's where our honesty comes from. That's where our trust comes from. The economy is not going to work without trust and good, decent, moral, God-fearing people. Okay, so that's something to really keep an eye on right there. That's probably the most important indicator of the direction we're going is, are we moving closer to God or away from God? As a nation. Okay, and we've moved so far away now, so many. It is scary. But again, seeing so many young people now starting to realize we are Christians. That's my biggest hope, or what gives me the most positive outlook. Okay, and as far as anything else going forward this year, good, that's it. I mean, that's all I've got. Work on becoming more self-sufficient, work on being able to eliminate your expenses, living on less, saving more, and just learn about things in general. How to do things for yourself. Woodworking, metalworking, mechanicking, working on your car, home repairs. We can still find those videos, thankfully. I don't know how much longer though. Okay, so that's all I've got for what's coming in 2025 or my predictions for the year. And I'd love to hear some of y'all's thoughts. What direction do you think this is going in? And then we'll be talking about the house more here in a couple weeks. I've been busy on it. So God bless and have a great evening.